And we are now live to the world. So, this is RJ Carter with Critical Blast, and we are speaking with Bill from Argos Comics. Is that correct? Argos Publishing, Argos Creations. There it is.
Argos Creations. Yeah. Right now we're doing comic books here at Argos Creations, but so yeah, that's it.
All right, and your book coming up is Tales from Beyond the Gate, and that's a horror anthology.
It is a huge horror anthology. We have over, I think around 17 creators, 19, 20 stories. Yeah, 19 to 20 stories right now.
That's a very big book. I mean, how many pages are you looking at?
160 plus. That's where we're at. It's going to be massive.
At 160, and what's your Indiegogo charging?
Well, the book itself, I believe it's a $30 price tag on the book. But if you look at you get a link in the description. Are you able to do that with your?
I've got the link in our description. I hope that people will check into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me pull up what I can. I know we're both having technical difficulties today. I'm in a huge blizzard right now and running on an old laptop, so I'm kind of impaired, capability impaired at the moment. But yeah, on our Indiegogo page, we have a whole bunch of tiers, really good tiers that meet the demand for different price points, depending on what people want to invest in. But the lowest tier is a $30 for one copy plus shipping and handling.
For that many pages, that's an insanely low price compared to what we've seen other Indiegogos go for.
Exactly. Yeah. The goal of this is it's really a community project. The goal is to get new talent to be published and to start having that under their belt and be able to reach an audience base and start developing their own projects from there.
Okay. So how many different creators do you have working with this project? I mean, I know you've got a bunch of stories. Are any of them doubling up, or do you have just all different, everyone's different on every story?
No, some of them are doubling up. We have writers and artists doing multiple projects. What I have is I have a list of all the creators involved and in our Discord. So I'm pulling that up right now. But to start off with, John Dillard is the creator who is the impetus for this project. John and really wanted to do something where we could get a lot of the new talent and people who have come out of the trenches from supporting this movement and all these independent movement into actually who want to be published to get us all together on one book. So a lot of the first initial wave of creators were put together from the Drawn and Quartered Fan Edition. So that's a weekly show on Chester Busby's channel on Fanspeak. And you have people like we had Todd Mulrooney, Manny Correa, Chester Busby, Tank Ferret, and John Dillard are all frequent on that show, and they each have their own respective channels. And so they decided to collaborate and start recruiting people. They recruited me from the show. I had won a couple episodes, and they liked my art, so they asked me to come along. And I'm doing a story with Chester. Sorry, everything's loading really slow thanks to the weather. I'm trying to get up my list here. We have Manny wrote and drawing and coloring and lettering his own story. John has done 3 stories that he's did the art for, and he wrote one. Chester wrote another, and then they collaborated on the 3rd story. Did an adaptation of an old folklore horror story. Then we started getting support from professionals in the independent movement. John Malin has submitted a page. He did a retelling of The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. By H.P. Lovecraft. And then Ethan Van Sciver just had a script submitted to him. He's going to do a 1-page for this book. Then we have Mike Barron, who who's a legend in the independent comic book community. With his, he's been on Nexus for 35 plus years with Steve Rude, and then of course Badger. But Mike Barron has a 6 to 8 page story with Todd Mulrooney, who I mentioned earlier, and Todd is also he was the winner for one of the artists who submitted work to John Malin. So Todd will be drawing a story in Graveyard Shift Volume 2.
Very cool.
And then Todd is also working with our other professional contributor, James Hudnall, who has a really long career. James Hudnall has his book Agenda on Indiegogo right now. So he had just submitted a script, and Todd is working with Mike Barron. I think we have a new artist. Kevin Stewart is working with James Hudnall. Sorry, there's so many people in this. It's kind of hard to keep it straight sometimes. But so Kevin Stewart, who's also known as Pigeon Milk, he's an incredible artist. You can see his promotional work on our Indiegogo page, along with this piece that I did for the story called Manticore that I'm working on with Chester Busby. But overall, yeah, it's a lot of people involved. A lot of people are doing some multiple stories, but we have more people that I've met. I've met so many people during in the last 3 or 4 months, and I've been involved in this community, and we try to get as many people in as we can and still make the book economically feasible for shipping.
Sure. Well, you listed some of the names there. They don't come cheap. So I'm assuming were these levels that you had to reach in the Indiegogo to say, hey, we can get a story by James Hudnall if we reach this level. We can get some artwork by Ethan Van Sciver if we reach that level.
No, actually, all the pros are donating for this.
That's awesome.
Initial run. Yeah, we have. They're all donating to help support what we're doing. They're giving back to the community that's been supporting them also. So it's a huge opportunity. And actually, the idea is that this Tales from Beyond the Gate is, it's a play on words. It's just everyone involved started jumping the gate that's involved in getting into the comic book industry and putting out a book. So we have.
I get it.
Yeah. So this first one's going to be an anthology series. I know this is going to be successful, but once this is successful, we're going to start putting together the second anthology series, which will be either sci-fi or fantasy, and then so we'll do this subsequently with different genres as the theme, and then continuing to push just to feature new talent as well as those who've established themselves as new artists in this industry.
Well, I am really digging this Manticore piece here, just looking at the line work and the foreshortening on the hand. Of course, now that I'm talking, nobody can see it. But that is representative of the story that you're writing?
This is as representative as I can get, because being one of a horror story, it has some twists and turns to it, and that's what's making this genre a little hard to do a lot of promotional stuff, because horror stories, you just can't ruin what's going on in the story. It's hard to do a lot of character reveals and all this. So it is representative. I can just say that the female character who's in dire straits right now is more than she appears. And it's really interesting what you find out about her. The Manticore story is going to be, we're going to see how this runs, and if it is popular enough, Chester and I are going to look into making it an ongoing series. We have a story by Todd DeWolf and Eric Weathers in the book, and it's a Knight Templar story, and it's kind of a 0-issue story, and it's a launch for their ongoing work, where this story takes place in the Crusades, but DeWolf's character is a modern-day Templar from the Crusades in the modern day. So this is kind of we have a prequel in there, and Eric Weathers is he's been a letterer on, I think he's a letterer on Jarbreakers. He's a letterer Shift, which some people are just, if you back that, you're getting that in the mail now in the last week or so. But he's an incredible artist and colorist, so his work is going to be involved in this also. I mean, the list just goes on and on with the talent that's in here. So check out the Indiegogo. It's I think we're about almost 40% funded after the first week. We have a $10,000 goal. Once we hit that, $10,000 goal, then we'll start getting into our tier, our stretch goals, and I'm pulling those up now. Everything's really slow. I apologize. This is kind of an odd day for internet for me.
Well, while you're pulling that up, I don't know how old you are, Bill. I'm 52 years old, and I was reading. I've been reading comic books since kindergarten. I wrote one of my long, thoughtful pieces on how I learned to read from them and what I was taught and everything. But one of the things that I remember as a huge joy from that time period of my life in the 70s was reading all the DC comics, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Unexpected, The Witching Hour, Ghosts. And these were all horror anthologies that had those special kinds of twists to them. And you would get like 3, sometimes 4 stories in an issue, but they also had a framework around them. I mean, obviously, if you read any House of Mystery, Kane was introducing everything. One that a lot of people don't know about, because it was a Charlton comic, was Midnight Tales. I think I've got that right. With the Midnight Philosopher and his niece Arachne, they were the hosts on that one, and it was another horror anthology. Do you have any kind of introductory storyline going into each of these stories, or just here's a story that starts, stops, here's another story that starts, stops, which is also fine because those anthologies do quite well too?
Well, we had initially talked about that, but when we started getting so many people involved, we decided to drop it. We wanted to get the page count dedicated to the creators. So we do have. I'm 40. I'm 44, so I'm definitely remember reading all those books, and I can't tell you how much fun those were to read, and that's really like a lot of the vein that we're doing too. So you have stories that delve, and this also has a little bit of some of that eerie heavy metal stories too. So we have some science fiction horror, and then we have, so it kind of pulls from all that area of comic book horror, and it's somewhat PG-13 kind of rating, which actually isn't really much different than those books were, because in that comic format, they were pretty crazy. I mean, there's, as far as the content wasn't all out in your face graphic, but the themes were very dark and very intense, and a lot of the violence happened off scene, and some of it happened on camera. But so this book is along that lines too. It's not slasher flick rated R horror. It is more intriguing, but there's a story or two in there when I read the scripts where you feel a little disturbed after you've read them, but it's just like, whoa, that one freaked me out. But
those are the best kind. Yeah, right? House of Mystery was the one you could read in front of your mom, and then Eerie was the one you had to read with the lights off and under the cover where no one could see what was in the book.
Right, exactly.
Although I spent more time with Vampirella.
Right, there you go. And that's and that story wasn't so much as a horror story, but it definitely kept my interest too. It was Vampirella. But
yes.
It was fun book. And so and that's why it's fun with this storyline is I do have there's a little bit of a page teaser I can show. So this is one page I'm working on today. So I mean, I do have a female main character in this story who has,
Did you just say female?
Yeah.
I've been told you're not allowed to say female. You have to say women.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. My speech.
You don't want people making fun of you, Bill. Come on now.
Go ahead. So it's a female lead. She's in.
So he does it again. It's perfectly fine. It's a female lead. Of course it is.
So the whole thing about, there's no real thought police involved in these stories either. So some of these won't be politically correct. And some of these tales will offend people, and that's perfectly all right too, but they're all done in fun. It's a horror genre. They're not supposed to make people warm and fuzzy. Right. So, and that's part of the fun too, is making a story that's thought-provoking and should make you cringe a little bit in a way that you're like, that story was just rough. That was not as far as like the quality being bad, but we're not policing this as far as what's going to be politically correct or not. Some of these tales may offend people who are highly sensitive, and that's just, their judgment call is their life. So we'll just go for that.
Well, hey, if art doesn't offend somebody, it's not really art, is it?
That's right. That's right. So, and I can show a few more. Let's see. We did a promotional last week. This is going to be a sketch piece. So, and I'm not sure how. You said you're pretty loose on what you have on your show. So this piece.
We're fine.
This is fine. Okay. So
we're not monetized anyway.
And last week we did a drawn quarter. Fan edition was all gatekeepers, and this piece will be put into our sketchbook for the drawn quarter. We had our winner was the artist Kat. Actually, if you go on the Indiegogo page, you can do a free download of the black and white version of the story that she drew, and that one was also written by Chester Busby, called Valentine. And that one is basically you'll get a link to a Dropbox, and you can download the PDF. So there's a free giveaway just for visiting the Indiegogo page, and that's just a nice perk for anyone who's interested in just checking it out. You get a free small horror story and get an idea of what some of the stuff's going to be like by one of the writers.
What's your planned date on this? When do you expect to be shipping?
We got September is when we want to start that. So when we go to print, so we want to have it in people's hands by Halloween. So we have. All
right. So for all the anti-gators out there, plan on seeing this in February, they're going to say?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, we gave ourselves a lot of.
If ever, it'll never come out.
No, not like the copy of Jawbreakers and Graveyard Shift I got yesterday and Thursday. So.
Yeah. This is the next book to never come out.
Exactly. No, we have. Yeah, actually, some people are already done with their stories. John is done with one of his stories, and I've seen his work on his second story and his third story. Manny's story is pretty much done. Todd Mulrooney's gotten a lot of work done. We have Jay Potts from Jay Potts Studios. He's gotten quite a bit done on his story, Extinction's Tale. And then now he's partnering up with Nasser Rabati. So Nasser is doing a 3 or 4 page story. And we're looking at maybe doing when we get a $30,000 stretch goal where we'll kick Nasser and see if we can't have those pages printed so they're perforated so people can tear them out if they want. Or Jay
Nasser is somebody I've given very little credit to because he's always kind of like the quiet guy showing up in the chats, and everybody's like, "Oh, kick Nasser, kick him out of here." And I'm like, "Well, he's kind of an underdog." And the more people I talk to, the guy's all over the damn place with stories and stuff. He's probably the busiest comic skater, publisher, writer out there.
He is. He's a young guy. He writes like crazy. All of his free time, he writes like crazy. I don't think he plays video games. I don't think he does anything but, tweet and write and show up in the chat on different shows. And he has his own channel. I think we'll be on his channel later on this weekend. But no, I mean, he came at the very last minute, just right at the deadline, and submitted to be into the book. And so we reviewed his story, and it was cool. So he's in the book, and no, he's been given kind of the personality of everyone's little brother. So and he eats it up, and he plays on that, and then that has given him some notoriety. So it's been a lot of fun. He is a good guy.
Well, I can appreciate the work you're putting into this because Critical Blast just did their first foray into publishing, not comic book publishing, but short story publishing. And what we did was a horror fantasy anthology called Gods and Services, which is one of the other links I should really put in the description because it's our first publication. But that was a lot of work and editing just to handle the formatting of the text and getting a book put together. I can't imagine, some of the job you're going to have to be handling here to deal with making sure panel layout works out correctly, getting pages laid out so that, you want to be able to turn a page so that a double page spread is double page, not, oh, here I turned it and here I went the other way, because we've seen professional comic books screw that deal up before.
Oh yeah. So, and that's one thing we had to work on too. So there's been a lot of going back and forth with creative teams, making sure that works. For example, the script that was given to me by Chester was 12 pages. And then he had not written for comics before. He's done a lot of writing, but it's mostly academic. And so his understanding of pacing and what will work on a page didn't match exactly. So for example, he would give me, there's a few pages where it was like 8-panel, 9-panel pages with a lot of activity on it. And that doesn't work very well in comic books, because of once you start getting that drawn and reduced and you're adding script, and there's, a 60% reduction from what this page is, so I was ended up having what we call magic bullet panels, okay, where it's like there's so much activity in one panel that it's not realistic. It's kind of, the reference to the magic bullet that hit 10 different spots with one bullet. So what you had to do was actually, I had to break this down a little bit more, and it turned into a 16-page story using with the same script, just because of, that his introduction and his understanding and his learning curve versus, me actually going through there, breaking down the roughs, which is what I'll do. I'll give you a quick example. This is a story I'm working on. So when I break down the roughs, I do something very, very loose and gesture-like with just a Sharpie on 8.5 by 11 paper. And I can see, and this kind of looks like a mess to some people, but I can see what's going to work and what I can fit on a page versus, another, once I have a script. So now that I did this work, my thumbnails, I could see that this isn't going to work. So I have too much going on a page. So then I broke it down and turned, like for example, this page was an 8-panel page. And I turned it into a 5-panel page because I couldn't get some of the activity in that, so that it was legible. It would just be too muddy and too much going on.
Sure.
Because another thing you have to think about is pacing.
See, my nudge would be that basically, hey, as long as everybody turns in an even number of pages, we're fine.
Right. And that's also the idea too, is you want to have it multiples of 4, which helps a lot with printing, because multiples of 8 is kind of the way, the printing is going, because you have 4 pages on one sheet of printed paper, on front and back, folded in half, right? So when people would come up with a 5-page story, a 9-page story, it's like, okay, go back and work this into, a different format. And that happened. There was a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of learning, because like I said, there's a lot of new talent, and whether it's the writers or artists, but through revisions and doing new copies, we were able to get a lot of this together. And like I said, actually, the project itself really did start back in October of last year. So we already have that much time in the can, and development done, scripts written, and rough drafts done, and final drafts of the script, as well as initial pages drawn and pieces put together. So we really are. Yeah,
we're broadcasting from the swimming pool of this hotel because it was the quietest place, and it looks like we might have people coming in to swim. So which means we might be coming down and shortening this up real quick here now, because it's going to get noisy real fast.
No problem. Hey, you know what? It was a pleasure to meet you. This is actually the first time we've really communicated, and I'm looking forward to coming back on when things work out a little better for you, as far as timing and location.
Yeah, we'll have a longer chat coming up here as you guys get closer to publication. So for everybody who's tuned in, definitely check out the Indiegogo for Argos Creations, Tales from Beyond the Gate. And now that I get the double entendre joke behind gate, it's a much more interesting concept. Not that it wasn't interesting before. I love horror anthologies, but it's a better dig, I think. So Bill, thanks for coming on here today, and Hail Raven, and we'll see everybody else tomorrow when we have Martina Markova on.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you,
Thank
Hail
you.
Raven. We'll see you, buddy.